Anyone can go to prison here in America without even knowing they did something wrong. Do you call this justice?
It has just been impossible to present this evidence in a way that the courts will pay attention to.
To this day, there are still claims that Yvonne has made that haven't even received a proper ruling from either the trial judge or from the Court of Appeals. That's a real problem.
Following the trial, two of the prosecution's key witnesses came forward to tell the truth. Ivan was innocent.
Gilks and Safanov have both willingly, in fact even eagerly, spoken with us and recanted their testimony at trial. They've admitted that they lied under oath at trial because they were forced into a position by the prosecutor and by the promises that they were made.
I know for a fact that I had no knowledge of Telugu's hiring Hetrick to do anything.
Edwin Gilks came forward and gave multiple statements under oath explaining that he had lied at Ivan's trial, that Ivan was not involved in Stephanie's murder, and that the prosecutor told him what to say. He lied, he said, because he believed it was the only way to avoid the death penalty himself.
Mr. Gilks had at one point indicated that he saw Ivan Telugus and other Russians go up to some guys outside of a rec center in Ephrata, Pennsylvania, threaten them, blow the guys away and get back in their car. That wasn't a true story.
All that stuff about the rec center, all that stuff was fabricated.
It turned out that not only was Ivan not involved in a murder outside the recreation center in Ephrata, Pennsylvania, but that no such murder even occurred.
I'm Dave Lloyd. I'm the Executive Director of Ephrata Recreation Center in Ephrata, Pennsylvania. I've been the director since 1994. I've been asked to answer some questions on a murder case here that supposedly took place at Ephrata Recreation Center, 130 South Academy Drive in Ephrata, Pennsylvania in either 2001, 2002. And I'd like to tell you that nothing like that happened here on the Ephrata Rec Center property or in Ephrata proper that we know of or even aware of.
Would you have known if it happened out there?
I would have known if it would have happened here in the Ephrata Recreation Center.
In the penalty phase of Ivan Telugus' trial, that is, this is the part after he's been convicted, when the jury decides whether he should get some mercy and he should get a life sentence, or whether he should receive the death penalty. The prosecutor was trying to prove that Ivan Telugus was too dangerous to be allowed to live. And what she did was, she said he's a person who can dial up a murder if he's sitting in a prison. That's why he needs to be executed. And she said the example of that is what happened in Ephrata, Pennsylvania. She said you heard about how Ivan gets involved and these guys end up dead. So this is a murder this is the head scratcher. It never occurred. There's no record of this murder occurring. We're certain that there wasn't an unsolved murder in Ephrata, Pennsylvania at around this time. And yet the prosecutor argued it to the jury as evidence that Ivan was too dangerous to be allowed to live. And we know it had an impact. The reason we know it had an impact is because the jurors were so terrified from that argument by the prosecutor that they asked the judge whether Ivan would have access to their contact information after the trial. They were terrified, based on what the prosecutor had said, that Ivan was going to come after them next.
Alexei Safanov also came forward and admitted in a sworn statement that he lied when he testified against Ivan. He confessed that he implicated Ivan in return for help in avoiding deportation for his federal charge. On appeal, the court found that there were serious questions as to whether Ivan was guilty of hiring Stephanie's murderer and allowed him to present witnesses. Because Safanov had been deported to Kyrgyzstan, he could not be brought to court to testify in support of Ivan's case. The state renewed its threats to prosecute Gilks and Hetrick for murder if they contradicted their trial testimony at a hearing. In response to these threats, Gilks invoked the Fifth Amendment and refused to answer any questions.
This is a case where even though Mr. Gilks couldn't testify at our hearing because he pleaded the Fifth Amendment and because he was scared of what would happen, All of the available evidence indicates that these recantations are true and that his trial testimony is false.
Hetrick, the man who confessed to killing Stephanie, stuck to his story and original deal with prosecutors.
The prosecutor told Hetrick, in the event that he should change substantially his version of the events that he gives you today, or he refuses to testify, then I would certainly be able to seek the death penalty. He's still under the threat of the death penalty. I mean, the prosecution, has made that clear. And for him to again deviate places him at risk.
Michael Hetrick testified at Yvonne's hearing in the Western District of Virginia, and unsurprisingly, he testified consistently with what he'd said at trial. And that's completely unsurprising, given that he's the one who actually committed the murder here. He's the one that wielded the knife and killed Stephanie Seid. And if he was to recant on his trial testimony, he would be the one on death row. He would be facing the death penalty. So it's completely unsurprising that he wouldn't change his testimony. And it doesn't undermine my belief that Yvonne is innocent, because, again, you had 3 key witnesses that testified against Yvonne at trial. 2 of them recanted their testimony. The only one who didn't was Mr. Hetrick, and he was the actual murderer. He was the one with the most to lose, the one who would end up on death row if he was to go back on what he said.
Without Gilks and Savanov's testimony, the court found it was not possible to find that Gilks and Savanov's admissions that they lied at trial were believable. Therefore, the court could not find that Ivan had clearly proven his innocence at the hearing. Today, the only evidence linking Ivan to Stephanie's murder comes from Hetrick's testimony, the story fed to him by police and invoked by threatening his life.
It's striking that out of these 3 legs that this conviction was standing on, 2 of them have been knocked out, and the 3rd is awfully wobbly.
We have 2 witnesses who recanted their testimony. They had no reason to do that. That is, once Yvonne was convicted, there's no reason that Gilks should have put himself in jeopardy by saying that he lied at the trial. I mean, to me, it seems like a conscience that was getting the better of him. Safanov had no reason to say that he recanted his testimony against Yvonne, because he has no interest, no financial interest, no legal interest in saying that Yvonne wasn't the killer. And yet both of these people gave detailed recantations indicating that Yvonne's innocent.
In his affidavit and the many times that we've talked with him, Edwin Gilks has expressed real surprise and shock that things have gotten as far as they've gotten. He said over and over again, I thought they would realize that I was lying, and I really never thought it would get here. I thought, I would tell a little lie and I would get my deal, and then they would know I was lying, and so everything would turn out okay.
From my experiences with him, he's a quiet, good-hearted guy who is caught up in a process that I don't even think he fully understands, or somehow doesn't really know how he even ended up here.
Now the only chance for the truth to be shown and for Ivan to avoid being executed for a crime that he didn't commit is for the governor to grant clemency.
Ivan Teleguz has been on death row for 10 years for a crime he did not commit. There is too much doubt to allow Ivan's execution to go forward.
Every day I think about the day that Yvonne will be executed, and I think of sitting there in Greensville Correctional Center with him and having to look at him and knowing as the clock ticks down that Virginia is going to execute someone who I know is innocent.
I've reviewed the evidence. I've seen what law enforcement and what the prosecutor have done in this case. I've argued on behalf of Yvonne, and he's innocent. And we have a situation now where there's an innocent man who's facing execution.
Oh, I hope that justice, that he's can live. I just don't believe that justice has been served right.
Well, yeah, it will be a miscarriage of justice if Ivan's executed. That's for sure.
When you see an innocent man and when you can look him in his eyes and you can know that he's facing execution, it really gives you pause about the death penalty as a whole, even for somebody who's always believed in it, as I have.
Бо він наш син дуже для нас є рідний, хоч нас багато велика сім'я. Ну, ми не представляємо житті без нього.
So you tell me, is there justice here?
Help to save an innocent man's life by joining the request that Governor McAuliffe intervene to stop Ivan's execution. This is Ivan's prayer.